Hi, this is Kevin Kraut again. Hi, I'm going to tell a story. The event happened with my wife. It was about 1992-93. It was in Provo, Utah. My wife and I had gone to a gentleman who was a massage therapist who was very well known in Utah for his quality and his ability to do massage therapies, and some people say he was one of the first ones to start the real medical type of massage therapy in Utah. But his name was Stan Malstrom. He also came up with the herbs called dial herbs, and dial herbs were, tinctures and things that were used by Stan. And we went into his office, and he was kind of working on my back and my neck, and then he went through my wife, and he actually went through and found a place in her foot that was bad, that she'd had for many years, that she couldn't push her foot down. And he actually fixed that so she could. It was very impressive. And then afterwards he says, he looked at our chart and he goes, "Oh, Kraut, you must be Ogden's son." And I says, "Well, yeah, as a matter of fact I am." And he says, "Well, I would like to tell you a story." He says, "Since you're a little bit privy to these kind of things," he says, "I'd be interested in telling you this story." And I said, "Sure, I'd love to hear that." He said, "Well, yesterday I was with Ezra Taft Benson, and I was working with him up in in his office. My wife and I were a little bit taken back, but I guess he worked with Ezra Taft Benson many times. And Benson had just recently in conference given his first talk. It was a pretty scathing talk against the Illuminati and against the Gadiantons and that kind of thing going on in America today. And so he sat down and he said, now I walked in there, and as I was talking to President Benson, I said, "President Benson, aren't you a little bit worried about the people in Washington, D.C., these Gadiantons that are back there? I mean, you really kind of exposed them and told stories about them and things. They might come and kill you. I mean, we're a little worried out here about you, And President Benson said, "Oh, Stan," he said, "come here." And he went over and he pulled the curtain back and he pointed down to the church headquarters and he said, "There are more people in that building that I am more afraid of than anybody in Washington, D.C." And then later I got to talk with Stan's son, and Stan's son and I actually repeated this story just to make sure that it was pretty close to that, and he said, "That's almost word for word how my father told me this story." And so it was me and my wife, and then also Stan's son, who also said. Okay, on the story about Ezra Taft Benson, I want people to understand that from the very beginning of this church, and actually forever, there's always been infiltration of the dark side. There's always been wolves in sheep clothing, as Christ said. There's always been Judases. There's always been people, and so why not now? Why wouldn't there be some who would not be in their proper order, who may have gotten into the church? My dad also met one of the big pilots out at Dudley Proving Grounds and was talking to him about communism. And he said, "Well, we have communism in every single church in America, even to the highest levels." And he said, "Oh, no, not the Mormon church." And he said, "Oh, yes, even the Mormon church." So, we know that it's got its way. It's climbed in. As Brigham said, things are decaying. It's getting to that point. So we just have to understand there are good men, and they are being controlled and manipulated by powerful sources in our world.